Hey everyone, welcome back to our YouTube channel. I'm excited to have you here today because we're going to dive into an exciting project that I think you will really enjoy. Whether you are an experienced developer or just starting out, this video is packed with useful tips and techniques. Before we get started, I just want to remind you to hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. It really helps out the channel and lets me know that you like the content I'm creating. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon so you never miss our upcoming tutorials. Your comments are very important too, so feel free to share your thoughts, ask questions, or suggest topics for future videos. Today we're going to build an awesome translator app from scratch using ReactJS and TailwindCSS. Let me give you a detailed overview of what we'll be creating. The translator app will consist of two main components: the start component and the app component. The start component is the first screen users will see when they open the app. It will have a welcoming interface with a text hellos on different languages, a title of the app, and a button to start the translation process. The start component is designed to be simple, yet visually appealing and encouraging them to start using the app. Once users click the start button, they will be taken to the app component. This component is where the main functionality of the app lives. Users can select the languages they want to translate from and to. There is a text area for entering the text they want to translate. Another text area will display the translated text. Users can swap the selected languages with a single click. The app component also has a feature to limit the number of characters that can be entered, ensuring smooth performance and user experience. To power our translation feature, we'll be using the MyMemory API. This API provides access to a large database of translated text, combining machine translation with contributions from human translators to deliver accurate results. By integrating this API, our app will be able to translate text between a wide variety of languages. So let's go ahead and test each feature. I'm going to choose the source and target languages from a drop-down list. Let's translate from English to Italian. There is a text area where users can enter the text they want to translate. The app keeps track of the number of characters entered and displays it, helping users stay within the character limit. By pressing the Enter key or clicking a button, users can get their text translated instantly. Let's choose another language and translate the text. I'm going to translate from English to German. Let's build an app with ReactJS and TailwindCSS. So here we have the translated text. Actually, users can easily swap the source and target languages with a single click. I'm going to copy this text and paste it here. So now we have the opposite translation, and actually it is correct. Lastly, the language selection dropdown will close when users click outside of it, ensuring a smooth and user-friendly experience. The application is fully responsive and it's looking great on both small and large screens. If I inspect the page and check the project on various screen sizes and devices, as you can see, we have here prepared a couple of different screen sizes and devices. So, as you can see, the application is fully responsive and it looks pretty nice. We will walk you through each feature step by step, explaining the code and the logic behind it. By the end of this video, you'll have a fully functional translator app that you can customize and extend as you like. We will be using two powerful technologies, ReactJS and TailwindCSS. ReactJS is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. It is super popular because it makes creating interactive UIs easy and efficient. TailwindCSS is a utility-first CSS framework that helps you style your apps quickly with minimal code. Together, these technologies make building beautiful and responsive web applications a breeze. ReactJS and TailwindCSS are popular for good reasons. ReactJS allows you to build reusable components, making your code clean and maintainable. Tailwind CSS lets you apply styles directly in your HTML, speeding up the development process. When used together, they provide a seamless way to create dynamic and visually appealing applications. Before we get started, I would like to mention one thing. Having some basic knowledge of ReactJS and Tailwind CSS will be beneficial. If you're new to these technologies, don't worry, I'll explain everything in a simple and straightforward way. But if you know the basics, it will make following along even easier. Alright, let's get started on building our Translator app. I created a new folder called Translator App, which right now is empty. Let's go ahead and open it in VS Code. So the first thing that we have to do is to create a React application with Tailwind CSS. Before we do that, I want to make sure that you already have Node.js installed on your computer. Node.js is a runtime environment and allows us to create server-side applications using JavaScript. In our case, we need Node.js because we're going to use npm Node Package Manager. So as I said, we have to create our React application with Tailwind CSS. For that, I'm going to use one of the build tools called Vite. It is a build tool that lets you configure a development environment for different frameworks such as React, Vue, Svelte, and so on. Let's go ahead and search for React Tailwind Vite. Let's visit this website. So this is a Tailwind CSS website where you can find the information about this technology. You can go to the documentation and find everything about Tailwind CSS. You can search for any of the CSS properties and you will get the information about these properties and values and so on. Right now we just need here the installation. So here we have the steps. I'm in the commands that will allow us to create a React application and then install Tailwind CSS. So in order to create a React application, we have to use terminal. I'm going to use a built-in terminal of the VS Code. In order to open it, we can press Ctrl plus backtick. So as you can see, the terminal is opened. And also we can click View and then choose Terminal from here. Alright, so as I said, we have to run those commands. We need the first command. So let's copy it and paste it here. I'm going to change the name of the project. It's going to be Translator App. Let's hit enter. So as you can see, our React application is created. We have here a new folder, Translator App. It includes a bunch of files and folders. We have here public folder, src source folder, and so on. We'll go through those files and folders in a minute. Next, we have to install Tailwind CSS. First of all, I'm going to enter the folder that we have created. I'm in the Translator App folder. So in order to enter the folder, we need cd followed by the name of the folder. It's going to be Translator App. And now we have to install Tailwind CSS. So we have to run npm install, then -d. The -d flag in the command means that the package, in this case Tailwind CSS, will be added as a development dependency. Development dependencies are packages that are only needed during the development phase and not in the production environment. Next, we need Tailwind CSS. Then it will be followed by Post CSS. Post CSS is a tool for transforming CSS with JavaScript plugins. It allows you to use various plugins to process your CSS code in a modular and flexible way. Essentially, it takes your CSS and then processes it through a series of plugins that can modify or extend the CSS in various ways. Next, we need here auto prefixer. So it is one of the most popular post CSS plugins. It automatically adds vendor prefixes to your CSS rules, which are necessary for ensuring cross-browser compatibility. Different browsers might require specific prefixes like WebKit, Moz, MC, O, and so on to support certain CSS features. Auto prefixer takes care of adding these prefixes based on the target browsers you specify. All right, let's hit enter and the Tailwind CSS will be installed. So once the Tailwind CSS is installed, next we have to initialize it and create a configuration file. For that we need npx tailwind CSS, then init-p. So as you can see, tailwind.config file is created. It is a configuration file, and we have to make here some changes. Let's go to the Tailwind website and find Tailwind config file. So I'm going to grab the content property from here with its values. Let's insert here content. After that, I'm going to open index.css file, which is placed in the src folder. Let's open index.css file. So the index.css file is used for some global styles. Let's go ahead and delete all of them. Then I'm going to go back to the Tailwind website and I'm going to grab those 3 directives. Let's grab them and paste them here. So again, these are directives. They are special comments used in Tailwind CSS to include different parts of Tailwind's generated CSS. So the first directive, base, actually I'm going to zoom in the code. So the first directive, base, includes Tailwind's base styles. It typically contains a CSS reset or normalization along with some base styles that are applied globally. These styles help ensure consistency across different browsers. The next directive is components. It includes Tailwind's component classes. Component classes are reusable chunks of CSS that Tailwind provides out of the box. These are more complex styles that can be used to build the UI components of your application. And then we have utilities directive. This directive includes Tailwind's utility classes. Utility classes are single-purpose classes that you use directly in your HTML to style the elements. As you know, Tailwind is known for its extensive set of utility classes that make it easy to apply styles without writing custom CSS. So that's it about the directives, which we paste here in the index.css file. I'm going to close this file. Actually, let's close this file as well. So now we have to run the application to the browser, and for that we have to use command npm run dev. So as you can see, a local URL is generated. We can copy it and paste it in the browser tab, or we can press Alt and then click this link. So as you can see, our application is up and running. Actually, I'm going to close those 2 tabs. We no longer need them. Next, I'm going to place the editor and the browser side by side, like so. Okay, let's go ahead and describe the files and the folders that we have here. So as you can see, we have 3 folders, node modules, which includes all the node modules. We're not going to go through these folders and files. Next, we have public folder, in which we have an icon. I mean this icon here. I'm going to get rid of this file. Next, in the src folder, we have assets, which includes again an icon. So I'm going to get rid of this folder at all. Next, we have app.css file, which we don't need, so I'm going to delete this file. Next, I'm going to open index.html file, which includes the root element. With the help of this root element, the application is rendered on the page. So I'm going to change the title of the application. It's going to be Translator App. And also I'm going to get rid of this icon. So let's delete link element. So as you can see, we have here some error, but we will fix that soon. So we have here 2 files, app.jsx and main.jsx. The main.jsx file is a main React file, which allows us to render the application on the page. Next, we have app.jsx file, in which we have app component. So I'm going to delete this entire code from here, and then we'll create a new component from scratch. Alright, so actually that's it about the files and folders. Now we have to create a new component. And for that, I'm going to use a shortcut, RAFCE. So if I hit enter, then we'll get here a new component. In order to use those shortcuts, you have to install one of the packages called ES7 snippets. I mean this package here. So if you want to use those shortcuts, then go ahead and install this package. I'm going to get rid of this import statement. We don't need it. If I save this file, then we will get app on the page. Alright, so everything works fine. Now I'm going to create new folder in the src folder, and it's going to be components. All the components will go here. So next we need to create new file. It's going to be translator start.jsx. Then I'm going to create another file. It's going to be translator app.jsx. Alright, so if we take a look at the finished project, so the first thing that you see here is a translator start component. And then once we click the start button, then we'll go to translator app component. Alright, so that's it. We need overall 2 different components. Next, I'm going to open translator start.jsx file, and I'm going to create new components using again RAFCE shortcut. So here we have new component. I'm going to delete this line of code. Actually, I'm going to close this tab here. So now in order to render this component on the page, we have to go to the app.jsx file. We have to import this component using import statement. We need translator start from components translator start file. Next, I'm going to insert here component translator start. Now if I save, then the content of the translator start component will be rendered on the page. Alright, so everything works fine. Next, I'm going to create some global styles. For that, I'm going to open index.css file, and I'm going to select every element using an asterisk. That's the only CSS that we will write throughout this project. So I'm going to get rid of default margin and padding. Let's set both of them to 0. Next, I'm going to set box sizing to border box. It means that the elements width and height will include padding and the border. And also, I'm going to get rid of default outline from every element using outline none. Okay, after that, I'm going to take care of the font family, and throughout this project, we will use some Google fonts. So let's go ahead and search for Google fonts. Go to the website and search for a couple of different fonts. The first font family is going to be Rousseau 1. Let's go ahead and click Get Font. The next one is going to be Writers. So let's click Get Font. Then I'm going to search for Noto Sans JP. This is some Japanese font. Let's click Get Font. And finally, I'm going to search for a font called Shou Jumaru. I don't know how to pronounce this font. Let's get fonts. Then I'm going to click Get Embed Code. Then we need URL. So I'm going to copy the URL from here. Let's paste it in the index.css file. So in order to use those fonts from Google Fonts, we have to add those custom font families to our configuration file. So let's go ahead and open tailwind.config file. Then in the extend property, I'm going to create new property. It's going to be font family. And I'm going to add here an object in which we will have all 4 fonts which we have just imported from the Google Fonts library. So the first font is going to be Writers. Now we have to open square brackets and then insert here the font name Writers. And also we need here font group. It's going to be sans serif. I'm going to duplicate this line of code 3 times. So the second font is going to be Rousseau1. Let's insert here the name of the font, Rousseau1. It's going to be sans serif. Next we have Noto Sans JP, and I'm going to insert here the name Noto Sans JP. It's going to be again sans serif. And finally we need the last font, which is Show Jumaru. Let's insert here the name Show Jumaru. As for the font group, it's going to be System UI. Alright, so that's it about the configuration file. Now we are able to use those fonts for our project. I'm going to define font family. As the default font, I'm going to use Rousseau1 sans serif. Now if I save, then the font will be changed. Alright, so that's it about the index.css file. I'm going to close this file, then go to the app.jsx file, and I'm going to add some styles to the development, which is a wrapper of our application. So as you know, in React we use class names and not classes, as we have it in the typical HTML. So the first class name is going to be width, which will be full. If we use width full, it means that the element takes up 100% as the width. Next we need height, and I'm going to make height screen. It means that the height will be 100% of the viewport. Also, I'm going to change the background of the application, and I'm going to use gradient effects. So we need here BG gradient. Then we have to specify the direction of the color transition. In our case, we need to left. Next, we need to specify the colors. So we need here from. And now I'm going to use an arbitrary value. For that, we have to use square brackets. So in TailwindCSS, arbitrary values allow you to apply styles that are not predefined in the Tailwind configuration. This provides the flexibility to use custom values for any utility class, making it possible to apply specific styles without modifying the Tailwind configuration or extending the theme. So I'm going to insert here a hexadecimal value, and it's going to be B6F492. Then we need second color, so we need here 2. And again, let's use an arbitrary value. The color is going to be 338B93. If I save, then the background will get this nice and cool linear gradient effect. Alright, after that I'm going to add here a couple of different classes. The next one is going to be flex. And then we have to place the content of the application in the center. So we need justify center and then items center. So we used here justify content center and align item center. Alright, so that's it about the wrapper development. Next I'm going to create here another div, and I'm going to place translator start component inside the development. So let's go ahead and add some class names here. We need width, and it's going to be an arbitrary value. We need width to be equal to 90%. Then I'm going to add here max width, and I'm going to set it to LG. It means that the max width of the development will be equal to 32 RAM, which itself equals to 512 pixels. Next, I'm going to define height, and I'm going to do that temporarily, then we will remove this height. So the height is going to be 70 viewport height. It means that the height will take up 70% of the viewport. Next, we need to change the background. Let's use again an arbitrary value. The color is going to be 2D, 2D, 2D. So here we have the element with a background and a width and height. Next, I'm going to add here rounded XL. So it is a border radius, and the value is 0.75 RAM or 12 pixels. So as you can see, we have here border radius. After that, I'm going to add a little shadow to the div element. So we need here shadow XL. Then we have to specify the color of the shadow. So we need shadow gray 800. So as you can see, we have here a shadow which actually doesn't look quite good. We need here shadow 2XL. So now we have much better result. Finally, I'm going to use flexbox. So we need here flex. And then we have to change the direction of the flex. It's going to be flex column. It will allow us to place the elements vertically in a column. Alright, so that's it about the app.jsx file. I'm going to go to the translator start.jsx and I'm going to create here some JSX. Let's get rid of this text from here. I'm going to insert here div elements. Let's create the elements and then we will style them using Tailwind classes. So we need here to pass 4 different span elements. The first one is going to be hello. Let's duplicate this line of code. Now I'm going to insert here hello in my native language, which is Georgian. So I'm going to change the keyboard and insert here gamma joba. Next, I'm going to duplicate the span element. And now I'm going to pass here hello in Japanese. So I'm going to copy this word from here. And finally, we need span elements in which I'm going to insert hello in Spanish, which is hola. Alright, so here we have the span elements. Next, I'm going to add here another div, which will include h1 heading elements. It's going to be Translator App. And then we need a button start. Alright, so all the elements are created and now I'm going to customize them. So I'm going to add some classes to the first div element. Let's add here class name. First we need to define width, it's going to be full. Then we need height, which will be full again. So in this case the element will take up 100% as the width and height. Next I'm going to add here flexbox, we need flex. Then we have to change the direction of the flex items and it's going to be column. It will place the flex items vertically in a column. Next we need to center the content using justify center and then we need items center. Next I'm going to get rid of this temporary height from here. Let's delete this class name from this element. After that I'm going to add here padding, which will be equal to 12. It means that the padding will be 3 rem, which is equal to 48 pixels. So we have the space inside the application. Next I'm going to customize the second development. So let's add here class name. The first one is going to be width equal to full, I mean 100%. Then we need height, which will be equal to 64. It means that the height will take up 16 rem or 256 pixels. After that I'm going to change the background and again let's use here gradient background. Actually I'm going to go back to the app.jsx file and grab this code. Let's copy and paste it here. Okay, so here we have the background of the element. Next I'm going to make the corners of this element rounded. If we take a look at the finished project, you will see here that all the corners are rounded except the bottom right corner. So in order to achieve that, we have to add here the following classes. So we need here rounded T, which is top, it's going to be full. Then we need rounded BL, I mean bottom left corner, it's going to be full. So if I save, then we'll get here the same result. Alright, after that I'm going to align the elements. So we need here to use flexbox, we need flex. Then let's change the direction, use flex col, I mean flex direction column. Next we need to center the flex items vertically. So we need justify center. So as you can see, the elements are placed vertically in a column, and they are placed in the center, again vertically, according to y-axis. Next, I'm going to change the color of the text. Let's use text gray 700. So the color of the text is changed. And now I'm going to create some padding on the right side using PR. It should be equal to 6. So we have here 1.5 RAM, which is equal to 24 pixels. Alright, so that's it about the parent developments. Now we have to customize the span elements. So I'm going to change the font of the first span element. In order to use the fonts that we specified in the configuration file, now we have to use the names. So we need fonts and the name of the font. In this case, I'm going to use font called Show Tomorrow. So as you can see, the font is changed. Next, I'm going to increase the font size. So let's set text to 6XL. It means that the font size will be equal to 3.75 RAM, which is 60 pixels. And finally, we need text center. So as you can see, the first span element is customized. Next, I'm going to customize the second span element. So I'm going to increase the font size. Let's use text 3XL. It is equal to 1.875 RAM, 30 pixels. Also, we need here text center. So the second span element is customized. Let's move on and take care of the third span element, which is hello in Japanese. So I'm going to change the fonts. Let's use here font Noto Sans JP. Then I'm going to increase the size of the font, which is going to be 4XL. It is 2.25 RAM, 36 pixels. And also we need to move the text to the right side using text right. So here we have the third span element, hello in Japanese. And finally, we have to customize the last span element. So let's go ahead and increase the font size. It's going to be 2XL, which means that we have font size equal to 1.5 RAM, 24 pixels. And then we need text right. We need to move the text to the right side. Okay, so that's it about the first part of the translator start component. Now we have to move on and customize the second one. The second part, which includes two elements, H1, which is the name of the application, Translator App, and then we have button start, which will allow us to open the application. Alright, so now I'm going to add some styles to the wrapper developments. Let's add here class name. So first of all, we need width to be full. Then I'm going to move the text to the right side. Next, I'm going to use space Y with the value 5. So the class space Y5 in TailwindCSS is used to apply vertical spacing between child elements within a parent container. In vertical spacing, I mean margin. So if I save, then we'll get the space vertically between the elements. Next, I'm going to add here margin top, and it's going to be 20. It is equal to 5 RAM, 80 pixels. And also we need here margin bottom, 36. Actually, we need to place the class name inside the quotes. So we need MB 36, which is equal to 9 RAM, 144 pixels. Alright, so that's it about the wrapper development. Next, I'm going to customize the H1 heading element. So let's add here class names. The first one is going to be font. Let's use here font called Righteous. Then I'm going to increase the font size. Let's set text to 4XL. It is 36 pixels. Then I'm going to add here text white. We have to make the color of the text white. And also let's make the text uppercase. Okay, so that's it about the H1 heading element. Next, I'm going to customize the button. So let's add here classes First one is going to be width, which will be equal to 32. It means 128 pixels. Next we need height, which will be 10. Height 10 means that the height will be 40 pixels, 2.5 rem. Then I'm going to use, again, gradient background. So let's grab this code, paste it here, and change the direction. We need to right. So as you can see, the background is changed, and we have here nice and cool gradient effect. Next, I'm going to make the button rounded, so we need rounded full. Also change the font, make it righteous. Then we have to make the font bold. Also change the size of the text. It's going to be text LG, which is equal to 18 pixels. Then I'm going to make the text uppercase. Then change the color of the text. Let's use here text gray, 700. And also I'm going to use here letter spacing, and the class name is tracking widest. So in this case, letter spacing is equal to 0.1 em. So if I save, then we'll get this nice and cool button. Next, I'm going to create a clicking effect using an active pseudo class. With pure Tailwind, we can't do that. We have to add a custom state for the translation utilities in the configuration file. So I'm going to open tailwind.config file, and here I'm going to add translate. Then we need to open square brackets, and I'm going to insert here active. Now let's go back to the translator start.jsx file. So here, extend allows you to extend the default Tailwind theme with custom values. In this case, it is being used to extend the translate utilities. By default, Tailwind provides utility classes for moving elements using the translate X and translate Y classes. The translate key here is adding an active state to those utilities. So now let's go back to the translator start.jsx file, and I'm going to add here active, then translate Y, and I'm going to add here an arbitrary value, which is going to be 1 pixel. So now if I click, then we'll get this nice clicking effect. Alright, so I think that's it about the translator start components. All the elements are created and styled. Now I'm going to open translator app.jsx file, which right now is empty. I'm going to create a new component using again shortcut RAFCE. Let's delete import statement. So now in order to render these components on the page, I'm going to go to the app.jsx file, and I'm going to import this file. So let's duplicate this line of code. Instead of start, we need here app. Then I'm going to comment this line of code out, and I'm going to insert here translator app. Alright, so now we have to add the content to these components and then customize it. So I'm going to get rid of this text from here, and then I'm going to create our elements, the JSX. So the first element inside the div element is going to be button. Throughout this project, we're going to use Awesome icons. So let's go ahead and connect Awesome library to our project. I'm going to search for Awesome CDN.js. Let's copy this link from here. Then I'm going to open index.html file. Then we need the link elements, and we have to pass here the CDN link of the Awesome library. Okay, so once the Awesome library is connected to our project, next I'm going to insert here iElement with the classes FA solid, FA X mark. It's going to be a closing X button. So here we have the X button. Next, after the button element, I'm going to open div, in which I'm going to open another div, and it's going to be the language English. So overall we need two languages, I mean translate from and translate to, and between those languages we need swapping icon. So I'm going to insert here iElements with the classes FA solid, FA arrows, rotate, and then again we need language. So here we have two languages, and between those languages we have here swapping icon. Alright, so after the languages, I'm going to open another div which will include text area. Actually, we need here text area. And then after text area, I'm going to insert here div elements, which will display the number of characters. We need here 0/200. After that, I'm going to open button, which will include font awesome icon. It's going to be FA solid, FA chevron down. So here we have the text area and the characters, I mean the number of characters and the chevron icon. After that, I'm going to create second text area. Let's actually grab this code from here. Then we need to get rid of number of characters because we don't need it for the second text area. So I think that's it about the elements that we need for our application. I mean the translating part. I'm going to customize those elements. So let's start with the first div element. I'm going to add here class name. We need width to be full, I mean 100%. Then I'm going to use flexbox in order to align the content of the div element. So we need flex followed by the flex column. We're changing the direction because we have to align flex items vertically in a column. Next we need gap y 4. It means that we will have row gap with the value 1 rem, which is equal to 16 pixels. If we save, then we'll get here some space between the flex items. Now I'm going to place the content in the center. So we need justify center and then item center. We need to center the content both vertically and horizontally. After that, I'm going to create some padding. Let's use px, which is padding on the left and right sides. It should be equal to 8, which is 32 pixels. Next we need pt, which is padding at the top side, and it's going to be 12. It is 48 pixels. And finally we need padding at the bottom equal to 6, and it is 24 pixels. Okay, that's it about the first development. Next I'm going to customize the button. So let's add here class name. I'm going to place the X closing button at the top right corner of the application. Therefore I'm going to use positions. So we need position absolute for the X closing button. And then in order to place the button according to the parent development, we need to add here position relative. And now we can define the top and right position. The top position is going to be 4, which is 16 pixels. And also we need here right position with the same value. So as you can see, the X closing button is placed at the top right corner of the application. Next I'm going to customize the icon itself. Let's increase the font size. It's going to be XL, which is equal to 20 pixels. And then I'm going to change the color. Let's use text gray 300. Okay, so that's it about the X closing button. It is customized. Next we have to take care of the development, which is the wrapper of the languages and the icon. So I'm going to add here class name. Let's set width to full, which is 100%. Then I'm going to define the minimum height, which will be equal to 20, and it is 80 pixels. Then we need again flexbox with justify center, which centers the content horizontally. Also we need to center the content vertically, therefore we need here items center. Then I'm going to use padding on the left and right sides. We need px equal to 4, which is 16 pixels. After that, I'm going to change the background of the development. And again, let's use this linear gradient background. Let's add it here. So as you can see, we have here nice and cool background. Actually, I'm going to change the direction of the color transition. It's going to be to right. Then after that, I'm going to change the color of the text. It's going to be gray 700. And finally, we need border radius, rounded LG, border radius with the value 8 pixels. Okay, so that's it about the wrapper development. It looks pretty nice. Next, I'm going to customize the languages. In this case, we have two languages, English. Actually, in order to avoid writing the same class names over and over again, we need similar styling for both elements. I'm going to use TailwindCSS directives. So directives allow us to create styles and then apply those styles for multiple elements at the same time. So let's go ahead and open index.css file and create directive. We have to create the class, let's call it language, and then we have to use keyword apply followed by the class names that we need to use. So I'm going to increase text size, the font size is going to be LG, 18 pixels. Next we need text right. We have to move the text on the right side. Then the text should be uppercase. And finally we need cursor to be pointer. Now in order to apply those styles to both languages, I'm going to go back to the Translator App.jsx file and I'm going to add to both developments class name language. Actually, we need here language. Okay, so these styles are applied to both elements. Next, I'm going to customize the I elements. Let's add here text to XL. It is 24 pixels. Then we need MX8. It means margin on the left and right sides, and 8 is equal to 32 pixels. And finally, we need cursor to be pointer. We need pointer. Okay, so the I element is customized, and actually with this part we are done. Next we have to take care of the text areas. So I'm going to find here the parent elements of the text area, these div elements, and I'm going to add to both div elements class name with full, which means 100%. Now, like the languages, we need the similar styles for both text areas. Therefore, I'm going to create another directive in the index.css file. Let's call the class name text area. Then we need apply. And I'm going to pass here a couple of different classes. We need width to be full. Then the height is going to be 48, which means that the height will be 192 pixels. Then we need resize none. As you know, by default, text areas can resize, and we don't need that. So I'm going to disable this functionality using resize none. Then I'm going to change the background. It's going to be an arbitrary value. Let's insert here 151515. Then I'm going to create some shadow. Let's use shadow MD. The color of the shadow is going to be black. Next, I'm going to make the elements rounded, and it's going to be rounded LG, which means that the border radius will be 8 pixels. After that, I'm going to create some padding using PX. It is padding on the left and right sides. It's going to be 4. It is 16 pixels. Then we need padding Y. Padding at the top and bottom sides. It's going to be 2. It is equal to 8 pixels. Then I'm going to change the fonts. Let's set font to righteous. The font is going to be light. Then I'm going to add here leading 5. It is a line height, and the value of the line height is 20 pixels, 1.25 rem. Alright, so I think that's it about this directive. Now we have to use this directive. Let's go to the Translator App.jsx file, and I'm going to add to both text areas. Class name is going to be text area. So as you can see, the styles are applied to both text area elements. Alright, now I'm going to take care of the div element, which includes the number of characters. I'm going to add to it class name. I'm going to position it here at the bottom right corner of the text area. So I'm going to add here position absolute. Then we have to position it according to the div element. So I'm going to add here relative. Then we need bottom position. It's going to be 2. It means that the bottom position is going to be 8 pixels. As for the right position, I'm going to make it 4, which is 16 pixels. So as you can see, the element is placed here at the bottom right corner of the text area. Alright, finally, I'm going to add here text color. It's going to be gray 400. Okay, so that's it. Now I'm going to customize this button here, which is placed between the text areas. So I'm going to add to the button the following classes. Let's set width to 12. It is 48 pixels. So here we have 3 RAM, 48 pixels. Next we need height equal to 12. Then I'm going to use again the gradient background. So let's grab this code from here and paste it here. The direction is going to be to right, so we don't need to change here anything. Here we have the gradient background. After that, I'm going to make the element rounded using rounded full. Then I'm going to increase the text size. Let's set it to 2XL. Also, I'm going to change the color of the text. Let's set color to tech gray 600. Then after that, I'm going to place the icon perfectly in the center of the circle. So we need here flexbox with justify center. And then we need items center. So the icon is placed perfectly in the center. Finally, I'm going to create again a clicking effect. As you know, we defined active in the Tailwind config file here. So I'm going to use active, followed by translate y, and the value is going to be 1 pixel. Now if I click, then we will get this nice and cool clicking effect. Alright, so actually that's it about the styling of our application. As you know, we created 2 components, translator start and translator up. Right now translator start is hidden. So here we have the first component of our application. The next thing that I'm going to do is to use React, and I'm going to manage opening and closing the application. Once we click Start button, then we have to go to the Translator App component, and once we click the X closing button, which is in the Translator App component, once we click this X closing button, we have to navigate back to the Start page. Now I'm going to create state. We need here variable. Then we need square brackets, and I'm going to insert here show translator up, and then we need updater function set show translator up. I'm going to explain this in a minute. It should be equal to useState, and the default value is going to be false. Also, we have to import useState from React. Alright, so state in React is an object that holds data that may change over the lifetime of a component. It is managed within the component and is used to create dynamic and interactive user interfaces. When the state changes, React re-renders the component to reflect the new data. You can initialize state using the useState hook in functional component. State updates should always be done using the provided setter functions. In this case, we have here setter function set show translator up, and this mechanism ensures that the UI stays in sync with the data, making your application responsive to user interactions and other events. So this line initializes a state variable showTranslatorApp and a function setShowTranslatorApp to update its value. The initial value is false, meaning that the start page will be shown first. Now we have to use a conditional rendering. So we have to get back here, translator start, then we need to open curly braces and use show translator up, the variable from the state. So if it is true, then we have to render translator up. Now inside that component, I'm going to pass a function as props. So let's call it onClose. It should be equal to, actually we need onClose. And I'm going to pass here an arrow function, a callback function. And we have to update showTranslatorUp variable. Therefore we need here set showTranslatorUp function, and we have to make it false. So this function will handle the visibility of the component. If this condition is true, if showTranslatorUp is true, then it means that the translator-up is rendered, and on close we have to close it and set the state showTranslatorUp to false. So again, this function is passed as a prop to the translator-up component and called when the close button, the X icon, is clicked. Next, we need here the second scenario, if the condition is false. Now we have to grab this component and paste it here. We have to add here, in the same way, prop on start. We need here a callback function, and we have to set showTranslatorUp to true. So this function sets the state showTranslatorUp to true. It is passed as a prop to the translator start component and called when the start button is clicked. Let's save this code. Then I'm going to go to the translator start component, and we have to pass here an object in which we have to pass on start function. So we passed here on start function as a parameter or props. Mostly it is called props in React, to child components to allow those components to trigger actions defined in their parent components. In this case, parent component is app.jsx component. So now we have to find the button. Here we have button start, and I'm going to add here onClick event handler, and we have to pass here function onStart. In the same way, we have to go to the translator app.jsx file and pass here function onClose. Then we have to find the xClosing button, which is right here. Now we have to add here onClick event handler, and we have to pass here function onClose. Alright, so I think that it should work. Let's go ahead and click start button. So as you can see, we navigated to the translator app component. Now if we click xClosing button, then this component will close. Okay, so everything works perfectly. We managed to open and close the application, and next we have to take care of the languages. Right now we have here hard-coded languages, English on both sides. We have to create a list of languages which will be displayed once we click those languages here, and we have to be able to select the languages from that list. First of all, I'm going to create a new JavaScript file where we will store all the languages. Let's go ahead and create this file here. I'm going to call it languages data.js. I have prepared a list in the text file. Here we have the list of languages with the proper codes and the names of the languages. It is a JavaScript object. So I'm going to copy the entire list, then paste it here. Actually, this file, this text file, is available in the resource files, so you can download and use the list from the text file. So again, we have here all the languages Actually, this list doesn't include all the languages. You can add other languages if you wish. It's up to you. Let's close this file. Now I'm going to import this file here. So we need import statements. Then I'm going to insert here languages. Then we need from, and we have to specify the path of the file. It is actually, we have to exit the current folder and then select languages data. All right, so we have imported all the languages successfully, and now we have to create a couple of different states. The first one is going to be selected language from. So we need here selected language from. Then we need an updater function, set selected language from. It should be equal to useState, and we have to pass here by default en. We need to import useState from React. So this state variable holds the code of the currently selected source language, I mean the language you want to translate from. The value en stands for English. This value is used to display the current source language and to send the correct language code to the translation API. Next, I'm going to create another state. Actually, let's duplicate this line of code. So the next state is going to be selected language to. Let's change from to, and it's going to be English again. So like the previous state, this state variable holds the code of the currently selected target language, I mean the language you want to translate to. After that, I'm going to create another state. Actually, let's close this tab. So the next state is going to be show languages. We need here languages, and then the updater function is going to be set show languages. It should be equal to useState, and the default value is going to be false. So this state variable controls the visibility of the language selection dropdown. The initial value, I mean the default value, is false. Actually, we don't need here the quotes. Let's get rid of quotes. So the initial value false means that the language selection dropdown is initially hidden. When the user clicks on the language display area, I mean those areas here, this state is set to true to show the language selection dropdown. It is set back to false to hide the dropdown after a selection is made, or if the user clicks outside of the dropdown, like we have it in the finished version of the project. So once we click the language, then the dropdown will appear, and then if we click outside of the dropdown, then it will hide. Alright, so after that I'm going to create another state, and it's going to be current language selection. We need here set current language selection. It should be equal to useState, and the default value is going to be null. So something's wrong here. Let's inspect the page. We have here an error saying that useState is not defined. So let's figure out what's the problem here. We need here useState. Also, I forgot here s, and we don't need those parentheses. Now everything should work. Alright, so this state variable keeps track of whether the user is currently selecting the source. Initial value of the state variable is null. It means that no language selection process is active initially. So when the user clicks on the source language display, this state is set to from. When the user clicks on the target language display, it is set to true. This helps determine which language to update when a language is selected from the dropdown. Alright, after that we have to create a function that will be called when the user clicks either the source language or target language. So I'm going to create the function, and it's going to be handle language click. It's going to be an arrow function, and I'm going to pass here a parameter type. Now inside the curly braces, I'm going to set current language selection to type. So as I said, the type is going to be either from or to, and besides that I'm going to set show languages to true. So again, type parameter is a string that indicates whether the user is selecting the source language, I mean from, or the target language, to. This line of code, I mean this one, updates the state variable current language selection to the value of type. This helps the app keep track of whether the user is selecting the source language or the target language. As for the second line of code, set show languages with the value true. This line sets the state variable show languages to true, making the language selection dropdown visible. So in summary, the handle language click function updates the state to indicate which language selection process is active and displays the language selection dropdown. Okay, now we have to manage rendering the list of languages once we click those two languages here. Again, we need to use a conditional rendering. So right after the languages, right after this closing div tag, I'm going to open curly braces, and then I'm going to insert here show languages state variable. If it is true, then we have to create a new div element which will include the list of languages, I mean the UL element. Before we create UL elements, I'm going to call the function that we created, I mean this function here, handle language click. We have to call this function once we click those two languages. So we need to add here for both languages on click event handler. Then we have to pass here a callback function, and then we have to call handle language click function. We need to add here arguments. For the first function we need argument from. As for the second function we need here argument to. Okay, after that, before we create the UL element, I'm going to add some classes to the div element in order to customize it. So I'm going to define width and height. As the width, I'm going to use here an arbitrary value where I should make some calculations. We need calc function. And as the value, I'm going to pass here 100% minus 4 RAM. Then in the same way, I'm going to calculate height. So we need again an arbitrary value where we have to pass calc function, and we have to insert here 100% minus 9 RAM. Next, I'm going to change the background color, and again let's use background with gradient effects. So let's copy this line and paste it here. Alright, after that I'm going to change the position of the elements. Let's set it to absolute. Then we need top position to be 32. It means that the top position is going to be 128 pixels. As for the left position, I'm going to make it 8, which is equal to 32 pixels. So, as you can see, we have here the div element, which is placed behind the first text area. In order to fix that, I'm going to use z index property. We need z with some higher value than 0, let's say 10. So now the text area ended up behind the div element. Let's make the div element rounded. And also I'm going to add here little shadow. Let's make it LG. And finally we need padding on all four sides. Let's make it 4, which is equal to 16 pixels. So now if I reload the page, then click start and click any of the languages here, the div element will show up. Okay, so everything works fine. Now inside the div element we have to pass UL elements, which will include an li element. So now we have to generate the list of languages from the languages data file dynamically. I'm in this file here. As you remember, we store here all the languages, the language names and the codes. So we have to generate a list from that file. And for that, I'm going to use one of the methods called object.entries. This method takes an object and returns an array of the object's own enumerable string key property pairs, key value pairs. So right after here, right after a UL element, open curly braces and insert here object.entries. And we have to pass here object languages. Actually, we need here languages. So we have to convert the languages object into an array of code and name pairs. For that, I'm going to use map function, which allows us to iterate and return an array. So inside here, we need to use callback function, which will take one parameter. It's going to be an array, and we have to pass here code and name. Now we have to return li element, and the li element will have key attribute with the value code, and as the content of the li element we have to pass here name. So for some reason VS Code gives us a warning that name is deprecated, but that's not quite correct because we use here name as the name of the language in the parameter, so it's definitely not deprecated. So don't pay attention to this warning. Okay, so let's get rid of li element from here. Actually, we have here some syntax error. Let's get rid of this parenthesis and paste it here. Alright, so now everything looks correct. And here we go. We have here the list of the languages. I'm going to customize list in a minute. So here the key is the prop that provides a unique identifier for each list item, which helps React to identify which items have changed, are added, or are removed. Now I'm going to customize the li element. Let's add here some class names. So the first one is going to be cursor pointer. Then I'm going to add here hover pseudo class, and I'm going to change the background on hover. Let's use here an arbitrary value. The color is going to be 10646B. Next, I'm going to add here transition. The duration of the transition is going to be 200 milliseconds. Then we need padding to be 2, which is equal to 8 pixels. And finally, we need border radius equal to 4 pixels. So now, once we hover over the list items, we'll get here nice and cool hover effect. Okay, so now I'm going to take care of the list. As you see, some of the languages are placed outside of the div elements. This div element here. So I'm going to hide those outer languages. For that, I'm going to add here overflow y scroll. Now, as you can see, the languages are no longer placed outside of the div element, and we have here scroll bar. Actually, I don't like this default scroll bar, so I'm going to hide it at all. And also at the same time, I want to make the list scrollable. For that, we have to add a custom plugin to the TailwindCSS configuration file. This plugin will allow us to create custom utility classes for styling scrollbars. So let's go ahead and open tailwind.config file. So as you can see, we have here plugins. This part of the configuration file defines an array of plugins. Each plugin is a function that TailwindCSS will call during the build process. So I'm going to insert here a function, and as the parameter I'm going to insert here object, which is going to be add utilities. So the plugin function receives an object as an argument, which includes various utility functions provided by TailwindCSS, such as add utilities. Now we have to define custom utility classes. In our case, we need a single utility class. So I'm going to create a new variable it's going to be new utilities, which is going to be an object in which I'm going to insert class scrollbar hide. Then I'm going to add here an object in which we have to define a couple of different properties and values. So the first one is going to be WebKit scrollbar, and it should be equal to display none. So this prefix is for Google Chrome. As you know, if you want to hide the scrollbar, you have to use WebKit scrollbar, this property. Next, we have to define prefix for Microsoft Edge browser or Internet Explorer. I don't know if anyone still uses this browser. So we have to use here MS overflow style, and it should be none. And finally, we need the property value pairs for Firefox, Mozilla Firefox. So we need here scrollbar width, and it's going to be none. Actually, we need the value in quotes. So again, let's go ahead and explain once again those values and properties. So scrollbar hide is a class that hides the scrollbar across different browsers using various CSS properties. Then we have WebKit scrollbar, which targets WebKit based browsers like Chrome and Safari. Display none hides the scrollbar. Then we have MS overflow style. It targets Internet Explorer and Edge to hide the scrollbar. Then we have scrollbar width with value none, which targets Firefox to hide the scrollbar. Alright, so now we have to call this function. Right after here, we need add utilities, and as the argument, we have to pass here the variable that we have created here, new utilities. Alright, so now everything is ready to hide the scrollbar. We have to use this class name. Let's go back to the Translator App.jsx file and add here class name scrollbar hide. So as you can see, we no longer have here scrollbar, and also the list is scrollable. Alright, so everything works perfectly so far. Now we have to manage selecting the language from the list and displaying it. For that, we have to create a new function, and it's going to be handle languages select. I'm going to add here an arrow function, and as the parameter, let's insert here language code. So this function will be called when the user selects a language from the language selection dropdown. Now I'm going to use here an if statement. So at first let's create if statement, and then I will explain. So we need here if with the condition current language selection. It is a state variable. So if current language selection is equal to from, then we need to update selected language from variable using set selected language from, and we have to pass here an argument language code. If this condition is false, then we need else statement in which we have to set selected language to, and we have to pass here language code. So this conditional statement checks the value of current language selection. If it is from, then it updates the selected language from state with the selected language code. And if it is to, then it updates the selected language to state with the selected language. Now, after if statement, we have to set show languages variable to false, because once we select the language, we have to hide the drop-down menu, the drop-down list. So again, this line of code sets the state variable show languages to false, hiding the language selection drop-down. So in summary, the handle language select function updates the state to reflect the selected language, either source or target, and hides the language selection dropdown. When the user clicks on the source or target language display, handle language click is called with either from or to as the argument. This sets the current language selection type and shows the language dropdown. When the user selects a language from the dropdown, handle language select is called with the selected language code. This updates the appropriate language state, source or target, and hides the dropdown. Now we have to add onClick event handler to the list item. So we have to add here onClick event handler. Then we have to use a callback function, which will include handle language select, and as the argument I'm going to pass here code. So right now we have here hard-coded languages English on both sides. I mean these language names here. So instead of English, I mean the hard-coded data, we have to pass here curly braces, then we need languages, and we have to pass here selected language from, then we need OR operator and English, because by default we need here English, and the same thing we need for the second language, but right now we need here two. So we have here a problem. Let's check the console. Reference error, languages is not defined. Actually we have here typo. We need languages. So now if I select the language, then it will be displayed here. As for the second language, I mean the target language, if we select French, then we will get French here. Alright, so everything works perfectly. Now once we are able to select the languages and display them here, next we have to work on this icon here. So this icon allows us to swap the languages. If we check the finished project and select here some languages, then click the icon, as you see the languages are swapped. So we have to add this functionality to our project. For that I'm going to create a new function. Let's call this function handle swap languages. It should be equal to an arrow function. So here we have to change the values of selected language from and selected language to state variables. So we have to update selected language from using set selected language from updater function, and now we have to pass here selected language to variable. Let's duplicate this line of code, and we need here to instead of from, and now here as the value I'm going to pass here selected language from. Now in order to run this function on click, we have to add click event handler to the icon. Let's find this icon. So here we have it. I'm going to add here on click event handler, and I'm going to pass here handle swap languages function. Now if I click, then the languages will swap. Okay, now it's time to manage translating the text, and for that I'm going to use one of the APIs called MyMemory. Let's go ahead and search for MyMemory API. Let's go to this website. So here we have the website of MyMemory. The MyMemory API is a translation service that provides access to a large database of translated text. It combines machine translation and human-contributed translations to deliver accurate and contextually appropriate results. So again, here we have the website about MyMemory API. You can learn about this API here. So here we have the example of API call, and in order to see how it works, I'm going to copy this URL from here. Then I'm going to use one of the VS Code packages called Thunder client, which allows us to make the API calls and get responses in JSON format. So I'm going to paste the URL. So here, as you can see, we have some hard-coded data. We have hello world, and the translation is from English to Italian. So once I click send, then we'll get here the response. We have the response in JSON format with some data. So as you can see, we have here response data, which includes an object, translated text, and the value, the translated text value. So again, this is a hard-coded data in the URL, and we will modify this data. All right, so let's close this tab. Also close this tab here as well. Now I'm going to create state, and it's going to be input text. Then we need an updater function, set input text. It should be equal to useState, and the default value is going to be an empty string. Then I'm going to duplicate this line of code. The second state variable is going to be translated text. Then we need set translated text, and again the default value is going to be an empty string. Alright, after that I'm going to create a new function, which is going to be handle translate, and I'm going to insert here async keyword. So the async and await keywords in JavaScript are used to handle asynchronous operations in a more readable and convenient way compared to traditional promises. So the async keyword is used to declare an asynchronous function, and it can be placed before a function declaration, expression, or arrow function. So I'm going to add here an arrow function. Next, we have to check if input text is empty or consists only of white space. So we need if statements, in which I'm going to pass the following condition. We need not operator, then input text state variable. Next, we need trim method. So if this condition is true, then we need to set translated text to an empty string. And then we have to use return. So here, input text.trim removes white space from both ends of the string. Then if the trim text is empty, the condition evaluates to true. If the input text is empty, then we clear the translated text using setTranslated_text function. Then we have return, which exits the function early, preventing further execution. If the user entered the text, then we have to make an HTTP GET request to the MyMemory API to translate the input text. So here, after the if statement, we need to create a new variable, which is going to be response. Then we need await keyword followed by the fetch method. So now we have to wait for the fetch request to complete and return a response object. And now we have to pass here this URL. So I'm going to copy again the URL. Then I'm going to open backticks, template literals. Let's paste here the URL. So as I said, we have here some hard-coded data. The text that is translated from English to Italian. We have to change this hard-coded data, both the text and the language pairs. So instead of hello world, I'm going to insert here $sign followed by the curly braces, and I'm going to add here encode URI components. Then in the parentheses, I'm going to insert input text. So this is a query parameter where input text is URL encoded to ensure special characters are correctly handled. Next, we have to take care of language pairs. So instead of English and Italian, we need again $sign followed by the curly braces. Now the first language is going to be selected language from. As for the second language, we need selected language to. Okay, after that we need to get the JSON response and parse it. So we need new variable, which is going to be data. It should be equal to await, then response dot JSON. So now we wait for the response to be parsed as JSON and return a JavaScript object representing the response data. After that, we have to set translated text, and we have to pass here data dot response data dot translated text. So if I open again Thunder client, paste here the URL and click send, we will get a response where we have response data and then translated text. So that's why we used here data.response data and then translated text. Alright, so now we update the state with the translated text from the API response. This argument here accesses the translated text from the parsed response object and passes it to set translated text to update the state. Now, let's close this tab. I'm going to add onClick event handler to the bottom. I mean this button here. So let's go ahead and find the button. So I think that's the button. So let's add here onClick event handler, and I'm going to insert here function handle translate. Now we have to handle the user input, so we need to create a function which will be the event handler that updates the state based on user input in a text area. So here before handle translate function, I'm going to create another function, and it's going to be handle input change. It should be equal to an arrow function, and we have to pass here an event object. So inside the function, I'm going to create new variable. It's going to be value, which should be equal to e.target.value. So here we extract the current value of the input element, which in our case is text area, that triggered the event. So here e.target refers to the element that triggered the event. As for the e.target.value, it retrieves the current value of that element, I mean the text that is typed by the user. I mean the text here. Actually, we need to change the color of the text in the text area. So let's find text area. I'm going to add here text gray 200. So the color of the text is changed. As for the second text area, I'm going to add here text with an arbitrary value, and it's going to be B6 F492. Alright, so let's go back to the handle input change function. So after that, we have to update input text. So we need here set input text. Actually, we need here camel case set input text. Let's change here I. So the value of set input text function will be the variable value which we have created here. Okay, so now we have to add some attributes to the text area. When working with forms in React, it is common to use controlled components. Controlled components are elements whose values are controlled by React state. This ensures that the UI is always in sync with the application data. So let's go ahead and find text area. So here we have it. Now we have to set the current value of the text area to the value of the input text state variable. We have to add here value attribute, and it should be equal to input text. By binding the value of the text area to a state variable input text, you ensure that the text area's displayed value is always in sync with the input text state. This makes the text area a control component. Then besides that, we need here OR operator and then an empty string. With that OR operator, we ensure that React will not warn about value being null or undefined. If the value is null or undefined, the expression evaluates to an empty string. Alright, besides that, we need here onChange event handler, in which we have to call function handle input change. So the onChange event handler updates the input text state variable whenever the user types in the text area. By providing an onChange handler, you can capture every change to the text area's value and update the React state accordingly. This keeps the state and the displayed value in sync. Now we have to take care of the second text area. Now we have to add here value attribute, which should be equal to translated text. And again, we need or operator followed by the empty string. And also I'm going to add here another attribute, which is called read-only. So the read-only attribute makes the text area non-editable. By adding the read-only attribute to the text area, you prevent the user from modifying its content. This is useful when you want to display output or result data that should not be changed by the user. Alright, so now the application should work. Let's go ahead and select the languages. I want to translate from English to, let's say, German. Let's insert here hello, how are you? Click button. So here we go. We have here the translation from English to German. I'm going to copy this text, then swap the languages, paste here the German text and click translation. So here we have hello, how are you? Alright, so the next thing that we have to do is to take care of the characters. In the finished version, once we start to type, then you will see that we have here the current number of the currently typed characters. So we have to add this functionality to our application. We have to define a state variable to manage the character count for user input in a text area. So let's create new state variable. It's going to be car count, and then we need set car count. It should be equal to useState, and the value is going to be 0. So this line of code declares a state variable car count and a function set car count to update it. The useState hook initializes car count with a value of 0. So the car count variable will hold the current number of characters entered by the user in the text area. Next, we have to define a variable to represent the maximum number of characters allowed in the text area. This will be used to limit the length of the user's input. So I'm going to create a new variable. It's going to be max characters, and it should be equal to 200. Now let's write the code that checks if the length of the user's input is less than or equal to max cars. If it is, then we will update the state variables input text and car count. We have to pass if statement in the handle input change function. So let's create if statement where we have to check value dot length is less than or equal to max cars, which is 200. If this condition is true, then we need to put this line of code inside the if statement, and also we need to add here set car count to value dot length. So this block of code checks if the length of the user's input, value.length, is less than or equal to max characters. If the condition is true, it updates the state variables input text and car count. So here set input text function updates the input text state variable with the current value of the input field, ensuring that the text area reflects the latest user input. As for the function set car count, it updates the car count state variable with the length of the current input, keeping track of the number of characters entered by the user. Finally, we need to display the current character count and the maximum allowed characters. This will show the user how many characters they have entered out of the allowed limit. So instead of hard-coded data, which we have here, 0 and 200, let's insert here curly braces, then we need car count, then we need here slash, and again curly braces, in which we have to pass max characters. Alright, so if I start typing, then the characters number, I mean the current number, will work fine. Let's translate the text. I don't know, let's translate it Danish to Danish. So here we have the Danish translation of hello, how are you? Alright, so everything works fine. Now we need to handle the key press event. I mean, we have to translate once we click the button, and also we have to translate the text once we hit the enter key. For that, we have to create a new function. Let's call it handle key down. It should be equal to an arrow function, and we have to add here an event object. So inside that function, I'm going to insert if statement where we have to check if the pressed key is enter or not. So we need here e.key equal to enter. If this is true, then we need e.prevent default, and after that we need to call handle translate function. So this function serves as an event handler for key down events. Let's break down what each part of this function does. The function takes an event object as its parameter. This event object contains information about the key press event. Next, we check if the key that was pressed is the enter key. The e.key property contains the value of the key that was pressed. If the key is enter, the condition evaluates to true. If the enter key is pressed, we prevent the default behavior associated with the enter key. For example, in a text area, the default behavior would be to insert a new line. By calling e.prevent default, we stop this from happening. After preventing the default behavior, we call the handle translate function. This function is responsible for handling the translation process, which includes fetching translation results from an API and updating the state with the translated text. Now we need to attach this event handler to our text area. So let's go ahead and find text area. And I'm going to add here on key down event handler, in which we have to insert handle key down function. So let's change the language. I'm going to select, I don't know, Korean, and now hit enter. So as you can see, it works. We have here Korean translation of the text. Alright, so everything works perfectly. And now the next thing that we have to do is to close our drop-down list of languages once we click outside of the drop-down. So first we need to create a reference for the drop-down element using the useRef hook. This reference will allow us to access the drop-down element directly. So let's go ahead and create reference. For that we need here const drop-down ref, and it should be equal to useRef hook, and the value is going to be null. So we declare a reference variable drop-down ref and initialize it to null. The useRef hook is used to persist a mutable reference to the drop-down element, which we can access and modify without causing re-renders. Next, we need to import the hook from React. So here we need to add useRef with useState hook. Now we need to define a function that handles clicks outside the dropdown. This function will check if the click event occurred outside the dropdown element. If it did, then the dropdown will be closed. So let's create a new function and call it handle click outside. It should be equal to an arrow function And I'm going to insert here an event object as the parameter. So now we need to use here an if statement. I will pass here a condition and then I will explain what's happening here. So we need dropdown ref.current, which is a property. Then we need AND operator followed by not dropdown ref.current.contains e.target. If this condition is true, then we have to set show languages to false. So this function takes an event object as its parameter. It checks if the dropdown element exists and if the click event target is not inside the dropdown element. So the first part, I mean this part here, dropdown ref.current, shows us if the dropdown element exists. As for the second part of the condition, it shows us if the click event target is not inside the dropdown element. If both conditions are met, it sets the show languages state to false, closing the dropdown. Now we have to set up an effect that adds an event listener when the dropdown is shown and removes it when the dropdown is hidden. So let's go ahead and use effect hook. So we need use effect, in which I'm going to pass an callback function. Then we need if statement, in which we have to check if show languages is true or false. If it is true, then we have to add an event listener to the document. So we need here document.add event listener, and the event is going to be mouse down. I will write here the entire function and then I will explain everything. So now we have to call handle click outside function. Then we need else statement, in which we have to remove event listener from the document. So I'm going to grab this line of code. Let's paste it here. Instead of add event listener, we need remove event listener. After that, we need return statement, then the arrow function, and we have to remove again event listener from the document. So let's copy and paste this line of code here. Finally, we have to add here a dependency array with the value of show languages. Now we have to import use effect from React. Okay, so let me explain what did we here. This use effect hook is used to manage side effects in our React component, specifically to handle clicks outside the dropdown. First, let's understand the purpose of use effect. The use effect hook allows us to perform side effects in functional components. These side effects can include data fetching, setting up subscriptions, or manually changing the DOM. In this case, we are adding and removing an event listener for clicks outside the dropdown. The use effect hook takes two arguments, a function and a dependency array. The function contains the code for the side effect, and the dependency array specifies when the side effect should be run. The function can also return a cleanup function to clean up after the effect. Let's break down the function inside the use effect. We have if statement with the condition show languages. This condition checks if the show languages state is true. If show languages is true, we add a mouse down event listener to the document. This event listener calls the handle click outside function whenever a mouse click occurs anywhere in the document. If the show languages state is false, we remove the mouse down event listener from the document. This ensures that the event listener is only active when the dropdown is visible. The function inside useEffect returns a cleanup function. This cleanup function is called when the component unmounts or before the effect is rerun. It ensures that the mouse down event listener is removed to prevent memory leaks or unexpected behavior. Finally, we add here the dependency array. The dependency array show languages specifies that the effect should be rerun whenever the show languages state changes. This means that the effect runs the first time the component mounts and every time the show languages state changes. If show languages changes to true, the mouse down event listener is added. If show languages changes to false, the event listener is removed. So in summary, this useEffect hook manages the mouse down event listener to handle clicks outside the dropdown. It adds the event listener when the dropdown is shown and removes it when the dropdown is hidden. The cleanup function ensures that the event listener is removed when the component unmounts or before the effect reruns, preventing memory leaks and ensuring smooth functionality. So now we have to attach the reference to our dropdown element. Let's find div element, which is the wrapper of the UL element. So here we have to add reference attribute, and the value is going to be dropdown ref. Now if I open the list and click outside, it will close. So here, this attribute assigns the dropdown ref reference to the dropdown element. This allows us to access the dropdown element directly via dropdown ref.current, enabling us to check if the click event occurred outside of the element. In summary, this setup ensures that the dropdown closes when the user clicks outside of it. We create a reference to the dropdown element using useRef, define a function to handle clicks outside the dropdown, attach the reference to the dropdown element using the ref attribute, and manage the event listener using the useEffect hook. This approach ensures a smooth and responsive user experience. Alright, so I think that's it about the functionality of our application. Let's test again how it works. I'm going to translate this text to Hindi. Let's click the button and here we go. Actually, I don't know the Hindi language and hopefully it is correct. Let me know if it is correct or not. Let's copy this text, swap the languages, add here the copied text, then press Enter key and here we go. We have here I created a ReactJS app. Alright, so everything works fine and now we have to move on and make our project responsive. Actually, responsiveness is a key aspect of modern web design, ensuring that websites and applications look and function well on a variety of devices and screen sizes. TailwindCSS makes it easy to build responsive designs by providing utility classes that can be applied conditionally based on screen size. I'm going to search for Tailwind CSS docs. Then we don't need width. Let's search for responsive design. Actually, here we have it. So Tailwind CSS uses mobile first approach for responsive design. This means that by default styles are applied to all screen sizes unless overridden by more specific classes for larger screens. Tailwind provides responsive variants that can be prefixed to utility classes to apply styles at different breakpoints. So Tailwind CSS defines several default breakpoints to handle different screen sizes. Here we have SM, small. It means that the minimum width of the screen is 640 pixels and up. Then we have MD, medium, in which the minimum width is 768 pixels and up. Then we have LG, large, and we have here minimum width 1024 pixels. Then we have XL, it means extra large, and the minimum width is 1280 pixels. And then we have 2XL, 2X extra large, and the minimum width is 1536 pixels and up. These breakpoints allow developers to apply styles conditionally based on the viewport width. So the first thing that I want to do with our project is to take care of the wrapper of the translator start component. I mean this page here. Let's go ahead and switch to the responsive mode. Then I'm going to select desktop 1. Actually, I have here prepared 6 desktop screen sizes, which are mostly used nowadays. Then we have 2 tablet screen sizes, and then finally we have 3 mobile screen sizes. Actually, let's increase the width of window. Then change here 45 into, let's say, 75. So let's check the project for desktop screens and see how it looks. As you can see, for desktop screens, everything looks pretty nice. Next, let's check the project on tablet. So for tablet screen sizes, the project looks good, but for mobiles, we need to make some changes. Let's switch to the tablet mode. And the first thing that I want to do is to take care of the wrapper of the translator start component. I mean this component. So let's go back to the VS Code and open translator start.jss file. So here, as you can see, we have here padding equal to 12, and I'm going to change it to 6. Then I'm going to use breakpoint SM, which is small, and I'm going to set padding to 12. So this class applies padding of 3 rem or 48 pixels to all sides of the element when the viewport width is at least 640 pixels. The SM prefix stands for the small breakpoint, which corresponds to a minimum width of 640 pixels. So these two classes mean that the padding will be 6 until the screen size becomes 640 pixels and up. After 640 pixels, the padding will be 12. So now we have here a tablet mode and the width is 820 pixels. If I change the width, let's set to mobile 1. As you can see, the padding is decreased. Now in this case, the padding is equal to 6, but once the width becomes 640 pixels or up, let's check the tablet mode. As you can see, the padding is increased to 12. So that's the way how the breakpoints work in Tailwind CSS. Actually, let's switch to the mobile one, then go back to the VS Code and take care of these span elements. So let's take care of the first span elements. Right now we have text 6L, and I'm going to add here SM. And now we need here text equal to 5XL. So the text will be 5XL until the screen size becomes 640 pixels and up. In the same way, I'm going to change the text sizes for the rest of the span elements. So let's go ahead and copy this code. In case of the second span element, we need here text 2XL. As for the second text size, it's going to be 3XL. Then let's change the text size for the third span element. We need here 3. As for the second text size, it's going to be 4. Then let's change the text size for the last span element. We need here 2XL and then 3XL. So now if we compare small screen sizes to kind of large screen sizes, you will see that the text of the span elements, the size of the text of the span elements are changing. Alright, now let's go ahead and take care of the Translator App component. Let's go back to the VS Code and open Translator App.jsx file. So here we have paddings with different directions and values. Now I'm going to customize the first padding. So let's add here SM, and then we need here px6. Let's check the results. So now, as you can see, the padding on the left and right sides is decreasing. Okay, so now I'm going to take care of the languages, I mean the text size, because if we select here some long words, then we will need here some changes, because as you can see it doesn't look quite good. So as you remember, we created a directive in index.css file for the text of the languages. We have here text LG, and now we have to modify the size of the text for different screen sizes. I'm going to add here SM, and then I'm going to make text SM. Now if we check the results, as you can see, the text became smaller. If we check mobile 3 screen size, you will see that everything looks good. I mean the languages look good. Okay, so let's check mobile 2. I think everything looks good. As for the mobile 3, we need to make here slight changes. Let's go back to the VS Code and open up.jsx file. So I'm going to create here the custom breakpoints. For that we need max, then an arbitrary value in which we have to enter the max width. In our case it's going to be 392 pixels. I'm using this value because if we check the width of those mobile screen sizes, as you see for mobile 2 we have here 393, and I want some changes for mobile 3 screen size. Therefore I'm going to set max width as 392 pixels. Alright, so on that breakpoint I'm going to add height, which is going to be equal to 90%. Then I'm going to use small breakpoint SM, and I'm going to set height to auto. So if we check the result, as you can see, the height of the application is changed. The height equal to 90% will be applied to the application until the screen size becomes 393 pixels. I mean until we reach this screen size. Alright, so let me explain deeply how the custom breakpoints work in TailwindCSS. TailwindCSS allows for custom breakpoints using a max width approach. In this case, it targets screens that are 392 pixels wide or narrower. The max prefix indicates that the styles should be applied to screens with a maximum width of 392 pixels. This part of the class, I mean height 90%, sets the height of the element to 90% of its containing element. Putting it together, max 392 pixels followed by height 90% applies a height of 90% to the element when the screen width is 392 pixels or narrower. Then we have SM, height auto. This part of the class targets the small breakpoint in TailwindCSS, which corresponds to screens that are 640 pixels wide or larger. Height auto sets the height of the element to auto, which means the height will adjust automatically based on the content inside the element. Alright, next we have to take care of the text area. As you can see, we have to make them slightly smaller. So let's go to the Translator App.jsx file. Actually, as you remember, we created directive for text areas, so we have to make the changes here. As you can see, we have here height equal to 48, and I'm going to add here custom breakpoint max 392 pixels. Then we need height equal to 44. Besides that, I'm going to change the text size as well, so let's use again max 392 pixels. Then we need text, and it should be SM. Let's check the results. So as you can see, the sizes of the text areas are changed. Now they look pretty nice. And also if we add here some text and reach to the limit of characters, then you will see that everything looks pretty nice. Alright, so that's it. We've successfully built a fully functional translator app using ReactJS and TailwindCSS. I hope you found this tutorial helpful and learned something new along the way. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps support the channel and lets me know that you like the content I'm creating. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more tutorials and click the bell icon so you get notified whenever I post a new video. I'd love to hear your thoughts, questions, or suggestions for future videos, so please leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.